Guess who's back? Happy Friday! We made it. We made it. I will tell you, this past week, life has thrown me for a huge loop, but I'm here. As I tell my kids, there's one thing you can always count on in life, right? Change. They're sick of me saying it, so I say it all the time. Anywho, I'm back. I've fueled my body with tons of caffeine, more than any human should consume. But I tell myself, it's not crack, it's not meth. I'm good. Who cares, right? I'm good. Oh, and if you guys know, if there's someone that can relate to this cup, you're my person, soulmates. You just got lit, L-I-T-T, up. If you know what that means, you're in. By the way, I have another coffee mug that's even bigger than that. Someone in my family thought it was a flower pot because it was so big. Anyway, all right, let's get on to the important stuff. So I'm not going to go over everything that's happened in the past week or so because that would be crazy train. I'm just going to focus on a few things that have happened more so today or very recently and how it's affected the markets, but also just the overall economy. We have talked about before measurements of economy and sentiment that you can look at to understand how good or bad things are, I guess. And there are two kind of basic groups, right? There's the hard data. That's like inflation, unemployment rate, CPI, price indexes, that kind of thing. And those are very specific numbers that are calculated, hard data. The issue is when they're released, it's usually a week to month after the data was collected. That's the only possible realistic way to get the data anyway. So the problem with that is called a lagging indicator. It tells you information that's a little bit stale, and average market times, it's not that big of a deal because that hard data, usually in average markets, will correspond pretty well with the second group of data, soft data. Soft data, if you remember, are things like surveys. The best one out there, the most popular one, I should say, is the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index. Now, if you remember, that is a survey that is sent out to 250 to 300 households, and it's a survey. It asks them questions. Are you spending more on groceries, on gas, canceled vacations, saving more money, putting more on your credit card, that kind of stuff. 2, ask people how they're feeling right now. Here's the issue. For a while now, this year, the hard data has said things are still pretty good. Things look really solid. No issue. The soft data has told a different story, and it showed concern that hasn't been reflected in those other numbers. So, today, this University of Michigan survey info was released for sentiment, I believe it was through May 11th. And the reason I said that date that it's important is something happened on the 12th that is not included, okay, in this number. And it's pretty critical. We'll talk about what that is in a minute. But let's back up. What was the number of the sentiment that was issued today? It was 50.8, 50.8. Well, a lot of times, right, we've talked about numbers in isolation don't mean a ton until you really compare it to something else. So where was this number in April? It was at 52.2. A couple of things to note. Obviously, it went down. When it goes down, it means that consumer sentiment is souring, right? They don't feel as good about things as they did last month. Second thing, this 50.8 number is the second lowest number on record. Neither of them really good, right? Oopsie. So what did folks say? Why are they concerned? 60 to 70% of the folks were talking about the tariff situation and how they are very worried that because of these huge tariffs, that the costs of the things that they need to buy are going to increase. I'm not talking about like crazy-ass luxury vacations. No. This is brass tack stuff, guys. Bread, milk, eggs. I don't know why they focus so much on eggs, but eggs is out there, right? And they're saying, I'm really worried. This stuff is starting to go up in price. That's not what I had in my budget. I can't afford this. This is, anyway. But they did say, I'm not only worried about these price increases in the near term, I'm actually worried about longer term and permanent. And I'm going to need to adjust my lifestyle, what have you. So not super awesome, right? So I mentioned there was something that happened on the 12th. That's not included in that number. Well, on the 12th, the U.S. and China announced that they were going to be suspending their crazy-ass tariffs for 90 days. It doesn't mean there's no tariffs. It means that if you remember, for some things it was like 145, 150%, something crazy, right? It's been reduced to, for most things, a baseline of 10%, okay? I mean, that's still a big move, right? And it's a 90-day pause. So the markets were like, this is awesome. Markets went up when I say markets, equity markets, Dow Jones went up 1,000 points or something. Sweet. But I always look under, right? Educate yourself. So what's really happening? We have a 90-day temporary pause on tariffs. So how is this affecting folks or businesses? Let's look at small businesses. Imagine that there's a small business produces widgets. I don't care what it is. But the raw inputs for making those widgets comes from China. Whatever the materials are, whatever it is. So when these tariffs went crazy ass high, they're freaking out, right? How am I going to pay for all this material that now is 2-3 times more than it was a month ago? How am I going to survive? So a lot of businesses were looking at going out of business, right? Well, then you get this 90-day pause. So what do? Ordering shit like crazy, right? Because they know that they have a 90-day window to get whatever they need over here. So how is that translated? There was a 300% increase in orders for containers to be shipped between China and the U.S. Kind of a geeky, nerdy out, but it's important because that's the first step. So you've already seen demand for products out of China skyrocket. And it's understandable, right? If you have a 90-day window, you're going to get whatever you can in that 90 days because we don't know what's going to happen on day 91. Will they extend this pause? Will it be completely erased? Probably not. And businesses have to act. Now remember, a 90-day window for a lot of us, 3 months, that might seem like a really long time. For a business or a company, that is not long at all. They have to look out years into the future on planning for expansion, having the capital, the money to pay for all the inputs for what they need for whatever their product is. Money for wages, what is going on? Wages of their employees, health benefits, a lot of stuff. But they have to look way beyond the 90 days. So, every time something changes, especially if it's temporary like this, they need to react almost as if that's a permanent change. So, rewind to this tit for tat. I'm going up to 90, 100, 110. I don't know what ended up, 145, 150. Companies needed to assume that that was going to be the new normal. So their budgets and plans, financial plans, they had to change dramatically, right? Now they're kind of changing them back. However, again, they have to plan years and years out. So there's just so much volatility, so much unknown, and craziness. It's not easy. But at least for now, ports are going to be busy again. LA, Portland, Seattle, a lot of that stuff. Crazy ass busy, right? Who knows in day 91? That was another thing. One more thing. Well, actually, I'm going to talk about 2 more things. Another thing is it relates more to costs and businesses and the economies. We've talked about the fact that these tariffs ultimately are going to be paid by people like you and me, right? Companies aren't going to absorb this. I'm so sick of hearing that. Companies have people to report to. their board of directors, their shareholders, whether private or public, right? Do you think that they're going to say, okay, all of a sudden, the cost to produce my goods are 20% more. So I'm just going to, because I'm such a good person and such a good company, I'll just take all of that on myself and I'll just squeeze my margins. What do I mean by squeezing margins? So you have a revenue line, the money that you make on the top, I call it top line because that's the top line of an income statement. The money you get in from selling your products. You subtract out what you spend to produce those products, okay? So not just the raw materials, but what about advertising and marketing, right? There's other things you include in that cost. Once you subtract out that cost, you'll get a gross margin number. When they say gross profit, that means the percentage, okay? Just that number divided by the revenue. So if you have revenue of this, and you have costs of this, your margin's here, what happens when costs go up to here? That middle space is your margin. It gets crushed. And shareholders get paid out of the money that is generated from the business after costs. They get paid what we call from the bottom line, from the net income. They're not going to stand for that. So what happened? Walmart CEO yesterday, hey guys, we're going to have to increase prices. And you're going to see these increased prices by the end of the month on the shelves. Here's a little tidbit of Jeopardy fact. Did you know that Walmart is the largest single employer in the entire world? Crazy, right? Imagine how many people shop at Walmart for goods. It is a lot. So now all of a sudden, everything they're looking at buying is going to be more expensive. So it was really the first time that the CEO of a very large company made this statement. And they were like, listen, our margins in the business that we're in, which is retail, are already so slim. We can't take on those costs. They could. We won't take on those costs because it will so negatively impact our margins. We can't operate that way. So here we go. You know what? We knew it. Why? Because we educated ourselves on what these tariffs meant. So anyone who's surprised by this, not us. They didn't do their homework. The last thing I want to talk about, which is more kind of like fun off the cuff. So Fortnite, I'm sure there's a lot of Fortnite fans. Fortnite has been in this legal dispute with Apple for years. So when a company puts their app on Apple, you know, like those really annoying in-app purchases? Do you want to buy $10 more of this or whatever? When you're in that app, if you do that, 30% of whatever you buy goes to Apple. It doesn't go to the company. So 70% goes to the company, 30% to Apple. And there used to be also, when you went out of the app, if you were linked into something, and you purchased something, Apple used to get something out too. So Fortnite was like, NFW, I am not doing this. This is not fair. I'm going to sue you, Apple, because this is egregious. These fees are way too much. So that has been going for a while. About a week or so ago, courts ruled in Fortnite's favor. The view was Fortnite's got to come back to Apple in the US. Anyone with an iOS platform is going to be able to play Fortnite starting on the 16th. It's going to be awesome. Then, guess what? Apple didn't even allow it. They blocked Fortnite from even putting it in their app library. Oh, so all of you who are expecting Fortnite today, sorry folks. Who knows how much longer it's going to be, but why don't we all just be childish about it and just block each other and, such is life. It doesn't end when you're a toddler, I guess. I mean, corporations are still doing this. So those are the key things from today, everybody. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Enjoy the weekend. For those of you who are parents, really enjoy this weekend because you might only have one more before your kids are off for summer break, and then you become like a freaking party planner, right? You have to entertain them and schedule their life. So enjoy it, and please be kind. Be accepting. As I always said, that 5-10 rule. 10 feet away, give a smile. 5 feet away, say hello. It makes a difference, people. Let's be kind. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful, 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 wonderful Friday and weekend. Please share this with other folks. It's also posted on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Please share it. I love educating folks. It makes my heart happy. I've gotten some great feedback, so thank you to everyone. Take care.